The town of Sykesville's mayor and town council meeting this evening and all day has been October 24th, 2022. We will call this meeting to order precisely at 7:02 p.m. The meeting is also being streamed live to the Carroll Media Center's YouTube channel as well as the town's Facebook page, and will be available for playback on both platforms. We'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence, please. Okay, thanks. All right, I have one member of the public present, two members of the police force, and one member of staff in the audience here. Are any of you prepared or willing or wanting to make public comment? Close call. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from October 24th. That's not correct, that's today. Minutes from October 11th, 2022, as well as a proclamation for the Municipal Government Works Month, which I would like to read before we vote to approve the consent agenda. So the proclamation is for the Municipal Government's Works Month, which is the month of November. The proclamation reads as, whereas the town of Sykesville was incorporated in 1904, and whereas Maryland is home to 156 other municipalities, and whereas municipal government represents the most responsive level of government, allowing citizens to have direct access to elected officials. And whereas in an effort to educate citizens about municipal government and the importance of their participation, the town of Sykesville is proud to promote municipal government awareness. And whereas municipalities have enhanced the quality of life for their respective residents by providing useful and valuable services, maintaining natural and historic sites and structures, and helping to make Maryland a great place to live, work, and play, and also explore. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and town council of the town of Sykesville, do hereby join the Maryland Municipal League in proclaiming November 2022 to be Municipal Government Works Month in Sykesville. Today, October 24th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, President Carter. Thank you, Councilman Schofield. That's a single and a double. Do we have all approved? Aye. Any opposed to the approval of the consent agenda? All right, here we go. Consent agenda approved. Next item on our agenda is new business, and the first of which is a proclamation for Sergeant Carl Bird, which I believe our chief of police will take over from here unless...
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.
All right. Sergeant Bird, would you come forward, please? Yes, sir. What's 6 feet? Throw them off. Well, kind of a sad day and a happy day. As I mentioned to you guys last time, Sergeant Bird indicated that it was his desire to retire after nearly 10 years of service to the town. And hey, I'll take that. 10 years, I'd be more than happy to have that from any officer. And Carl was actually here about a year before I got here. And Lieutenant and I were talking earlier today about some of Carl's attributes. And the first thing that comes to mind is team player. The second thing that comes to mind is, and I've mentioned this before, selfless service. I mean, the guy always willing to come in on his day off, switch his schedule from days to nights, whatever it takes to cover for another officer. Carl was willing to do that, and you have to have a lot of respect for that nowadays. Especially he with a busy family life at home. His willingness to always come in and be there for us is something that we'll miss and we respect very much. Some of the other things to mention, of course, a big heart. Guy's got a big heart and always looking out for subordinates. He and I were just talking earlier today about a few times, actually several times, where he came forward to me to discuss a matter that was important to one of his subordinates that was, of course, important to me as well, whether it be about salary or benefits or leave or whatever the case was. Carl was always looking out for his subordinates, and again, something that I respect quite a bit in Carl. So with that said, I would like to read this proclamation that you can see. Read along with me, if you like. Whereas on March 25th, 2013, Sergeant Carl Patrick Byrd began his career with the Sykesville Police Department following a 21-year career with the Baltimore Police Department. You know, I was looking at your resume back when you applied here, and some of the things you did with Baltimore Police were very respectful and honorable. I mean, the bike patrol and the advanced technical team and some of the plainclothes details you did certainly were very honorable for you to do. Sergeant Carl Byrd was promoted to patrolman first class in 2014, corporal in 2015, and to his current rank of sergeant in 2022. Whereas Sergeant Byrd has indicated his desire to retire from the Sykesville Police Department effective November 13th, 2022, after nearly 10 years of service. And whereas over the course of his career with the Sykesville Police Department, Sergeant Byrd has served reliably and faithfully in his duties, has been a mentor and supervisor to many officers of the Sykesville Police Department. And whereas Sergeant Byrd, in his capacity as Department Grants Coordinator, and you've heard me talk about this in the past, has been responsible for the allocation and maintenance of well over $65,000 in state and federal grants that has had a direct positive impact on police department operations in terms of training, equipment, staffing, and so forth. And whereas, finally, Sergeant Byrd will be truly missed by his subordinates, supervisors, and staff at the Sykesville Police Department, as well as staff at the town of Sykesville and Mayor and Town Council. And Mayor, I think I'll leave that last one to you.
Okay, thank you. And now, therefore, we, the Mayor and Town Council of the town of Sykesville, do hereby congratulate Sergeant Carl Patrick Byrd for his 10 years of service and proclaim our gratitude for his dedication and to duty and commitment to service to the citizens of the town of Sykesville, proclaimed this 24th day of October in the year 2022. Thank you, Sergeant Byrd, very much.
My family and I have been part of this community before I came to town of Sykesville. We've remained and we will continue to be part of the town of Sykesville once I retire. You'll still see me, I'll still be around. Now I can yell at you.
At the town events and you're
I'll be good.
having too much fun.
No such thing.
Get sent off for the auxiliary.
Listen, we're going to have a luncheon for him on November 2nd, but I did want to present this to him while we're all here. Just a small token of our appreciation for his 10 years of service, and basically it just says, congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for nearly 10 years of service to the state of Maryland and the citizens of Sykesville. You will be greatly missed. Best wishes, Sergeant Carl.
I do
This
not.
home.
Nice.
Very
nice.
For him to put on his mantle.
Thank you. I appreciate
And if you all can join us for lunch on November 2nd, we got something planned, a little going away party for you, and break bread and celebrate your successes and wish you the best in the future.
Thank you.
Stay in touch with us.
I will. And you guys all know how to get in touch with me if you ever
Excellent.
need us.
I know where you live.
Don't think the phone.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Sergeant.
Thanks.
Well,
Oh.
Alright, yeah.
On the second.
Yeah.
there you go.
There you go.
I dress nicer.
Actually, Sergeant, here's your proclamation from the council. So, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
He works his last 2 days, later this week, Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay. I'll be better
So you're
soon.
gonna send out that invite?
Not a chance.
Our next item of new business is to consider, discuss, and act on fiscal year 2023 paving amendment. I'll just give a quick summary and then turn it over to Joe to give us some more detail. Post-award, staff met with CPE, that was our paving contractor this year, to discuss amendments to the original bid specifications in order to provide a higher quality end product. These amendments include a higher grade asphalt mix, a larger paving area around the Springfield Avenue Circle, which by the way looks phenomenal, and a additional striping and a more durable type of striping. These additions will increase the cost not to exceed the amount of $75,000. And I know from a budgeting perspective, and I know you'll touch on this, Joe, that we had unused highway user revenues from 2022, fiscal year 22, which can be applied to this overage. I'll turn it over to you.
No, that's right. And just to touch on the finance part of it, all of this is going to be highway user revenues. We expect to collect a little over $200,000 in the current fiscal year, and then we had the carryover from FY22, which was $51,000. So even with this additional work that we're having done current fiscal year, there's still plenty of highway user revenue funding available. As a matter of fact, some of the other items that we'll likely do, usually we try to spend about $20,000 in sidewalk repair work. We'll still have money left over to do that. And then also the signage on Spout Hill Road. We're looking at some solar signage for Spout Hill Road to kind of draw attention to that crosswalk there at 2nd Avenue. So even with this additional funding, we'll still be able to do all the other things that we typically do with highway user revenues.
Thank you. I'll open it up for any questions, any questions for staff.
I just want to clarify when it is mentioned the circle on Springfield Avenue, that's actually on the Warfield property.
Yes.
Okay, just for the public to know.
Yep.
We don't have a circle.
We have one.
The other side of 32.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, President Carter. Anything else from anyone for Joe? All right. So then at this point, we would be looking for a motion that we approve the additional funding of $75,000 for paving work for a total of $225,000 for fiscal year 23. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the additional funding of $75,000 for paving work for a total of $225,000 for FY23.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Before I call for a vote, is there any need for any further discussion or debate? Okay. All in favor of the motion on the table?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion approved unanimously by those members present this evening. We have 2 absent. And just for staff, just to throw this out here, Joe, regarding minor repairs, that curb on Central Avenue, the puzzle pieces have been pieced back together manually. I think it was damaged in the winter plowing season, but maybe we could add that to the list for next year for repairs. It's serving its purpose right now. Just it's about to.
Where is that, Mayor?
On Central Avenue.
Central Avenue.
Yes, between 2nd and 1st. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, it's just south of 1st. Okay, our next item of new business is the introduction of ordinance number 2022-05, elections ordinance. So this was, I'll let Joe do most of the talking here off the top, but I just want to point out this was something we briefly discussed when it was first to be on our agenda. I think that was the August meeting. So we did some talking, but now it's officially we'll get to discuss this as an introduction of the ordinance. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, it was intended to be introduced back in August. We did have to change. We had to go through the charter amendment to, modify the nominating process. So instead of a nominating process, we went to a more form-based filing candidacy form, so that again we wouldn't have to go through that nominating process. So the ordinance itself was amended to reflect that change to the charter, and then really just to codify a lot of the other things that we had already been doing in our elections, such as mail-in voting, provisional ballots, pretty standard things that we've been doing on the election side or the election administration side. Again, it's supposed to be relatively straightforward. We didn't want to do anything that significantly changes how we administer elections. We just wanted to codify these processes so that we had a book to kind of go back to and guide us along those during those election seasons.
Great, thank you. I have a list of some things I'd like to talk about this evening, but I'll start with the council. If anybody has any comments or concerns. Okay. No. Okay.
So is this has 2 public hearings because we're changing the charter? Is that correct? Is that
The charter is we've already gone through that process to
Okay.
change the charter. So this is just a standard ordinance this process.
All right.
So we'll introduce it tonight. There'll be a public hearing and adoption at the next meeting.
Okay.
So I found a few minor typos, but also I wanted to express some concerns that we could perhaps discuss this evening before I call for a motion to introduce the ordinance. See you, Sarge. Amongst the typos, the word Lows, L-O-W-S, I believe is supposed to be laws, L-A-W-S, in the first whereas at the top of page 1. And likewise, the one that would never get caught with a spell check, another one that would never get caught is the word tow, T-O-W, in lieu of to, T-W-O, which is in section 10-5, specifically the letter D. And I can forward these all to you if you'd like, Joe. And you don't have to be, or Carrie doesn't have to be taking these notes. But so just that for typos. And then I did find some inconsistency with the use of the phrase Board of Election Supervisors versus Board of Supervisors of Elections, and that just irritated me. And so if we could decide which one would make most sense to be consistent with, I assume it's the Board of Election Supervisors.
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Good, thank you. And then along those lines, there's a question of, at times I would say, within the ordinance with the use of the word supervisor versus judge. And I know Joe and I spoke of this afternoon. So the Board of Election Supervisors is made up of 3 individuals, each of whom are called judges. And so I think and that's defined, the terms are defined within the charter. So I think there are times when it says supervisors within the ordinance where it should just read judges. So we'll go through that and make sure that's corrected. And then I have a question for staff. Is it necessary to define that the appointment of an assistant election secretary is only for one election cycle? I know we do it every election cycle, and it's normally our clerk that we appoint to that position. But is it defined in the charter, or is there a need for it to be defined at all or noted in the ordinance that it's just for one election?
It doesn't need to be noted as it's only for one election.
Okay.
I mean, in theory, you all can appoint the special election.
Yes, it's
whatever the title is.
Yes.
In perpetuity, and just make it part of the
Okay.
clerk job description, really.
Okay. Yeah, because right now it refers to it a few times in the ordinance about the appointment of an assistant election secretary.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something worth speaking about this evening as to whether or not. I mean, I know, like I said, we're all who have been on the council through at least one election cycle realize that we do that at a particular time in the year on an election year, every 2 years. So if you're fine with it, just stating that as being part of the ordinance as such, I'm fine with it too.
Or are you saying you're asking for it to change to say it's permanently the clerk, or you're saying keep it as we...
It's up for discussion. The idea of it saying that, as Joe just mentioned, is the first I've even thought of that, about it permanently defaulting to the position of the clerk. But
You might want to put as the clerk or its designee, because in the event that the clerk is absent and can't make that election.
it's true too. That
Well,
would
but
hold if
again-
we appointed
Maybe
the
the
clerk.
clerk will run.
Well, see, and again, in the charter, it talks about the town manager is actually
Yes.
responsible for the election.
Correct. And this is an option for us.
This is just an
Yeah,
option.
okay.
Now,
Yeah.
every year we make the appointment because, well, every year we've had an election, the town manager would actually like to have somebody else handle that thing. So it's like,
Got it.
we'd like to keep that going. However, if the clerk was never around, it would default just back to the town
Okay.
manager.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? We're fine the way it's
We
showing.
should leave it in there then.
Okay.
The way it is, so we could make a decision every year.
I like it. Okay. Good deal. And a personal beef of mine is when the townhouse is referred to as town hall. And so that appears 3 times in sections 10-4. And I'd like it to read townhouse since it's the official name of our government building. I don't know if you all agree or disagree or have any further comment or even care that it's might be-
Townhouse.
Okay,
Sounds
thank
good.
you.
It looks like a house.
Good deal. Well, that's why it's called a townhouse, because it was built
Exactly
as
right.
one. Back in the 60s, I think it got its name.
Will it always be a townhouse?
I mean 80s. That's a good question. I don't know.
And so every time that we change it, will we want to change that, or will we always call this a townhouse?
I would hope to think that that the townhouse is where our pool place will consistently be, and if that changes, that's going to require changes too. So
We could change it to, municipal facility designated to handle the election or something like that.
that's fine too.
Okay.
Whichever. Thank you.
Stop.
Just saying, keep it general.
Very good. That's a good point. I mean, I'd hate to think we ever didn't use the townhouse as our municipal government building, but. And then I know that Jeremiah and I believe another council member, were in agreement that we'd like to remove all gender pronouns from this ordinance and sooner or later from all of our ordinances when we do update everything generally. And the word he/she and his/her appears in section 10-3, 10-4, and 10-6. In 10-3, it's in part E. In 10-4, it's in C.
So
And
we're
in
just gonna
10-6,
say,
it's A and B. Just replace it with their or them.
More of a gender neutrality sort of terminology.
see each person is offered to vote or something like that?
Yeah, I just think the way it shows up is it's like talking about, like in poll watchers, it talks about how a poll watcher can make sure that his or her candidate that they're there to represent, and it just is easier, I think, just to say there.
And it's more inclusive language.
And it's more inclusive language. But to be honest with you, right now our charter and much of our ordinances just have the word he, and it actually has like this disclaimer ahead on many pages that like where he is shown, it represents he and she, and that's more annoying than the he/she, if you ask me. So the there and them is preferred and more in keeping with the gender neutrality. So I didn't spend any time on reading these today, just so you know. I'm almost through though. I'd like there to be some sort of mention of prohibition of electronic devices used by the members of the Board of Election Supervisors or by the judges during the election and in the polling place. I know that I know that photos are prohibited, or at least implied that it's prohibited. I don't know if that's written anywhere, but any communication, I think, with the public in one direction or the other, I think is...
So like personal electronic communication
Yes.
devices?
Yes. And I know that in the event of emergency, if we were to provide family members of judges, election judges, the landline number for them to reach, to call in the event of emergency, I think that would be an acceptable alternative means of communication.
Are the judges allowed to bring any type of reading material? Because I've never been here all day, but I can imagine sitting out there. I know that there's lull spots. Are they just supposed to watch the walls? Can they bring a book?
Yeah, I'm quite sure they could bring a book. Yeah,
Bring a book, but you would limit that to a
paper.
Paper.
Yeah,
Okay.
a physical reading material. I stress it for, I guess maybe much of it's implied, but I know my parents were both election judges when I was growing up, and they had no and this was, through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and currently there's no opportunity for them to communicate with the outside during while in the polling place, particularly when ballots are being counted. So I don't know if anyone's in favor, not in favor of the addition of that.
So I don't have a concern with personal devices, and if we label them personal devices, I just don't know what the future of elections will be. And of course, we can change our ordinance later,
Right.
if things change, but we don't change these that often. So
Correct.
That's what I was thinking, like not electronic devices, but you're really talking about cell phones or communication.
Yeah, it
So
would be
it
for
might
the
be
purposes of
Since
communication.
we can't count now, maybe eventually we electronically count, and we don't want to eliminate that, like you're saying, from the...
It would be, I guess, to prohibit communication, social media and such.
I think that's kind of a big ask, personally, because I think the election judges are up here for 12 hours,
Longer than that.
longer than that. I mean, when's the last time one of us has gone 12, 14 hours without our phone?
Almost every day when I'm working on the road, but
Well, are we saying no communication for that 12 hours, or you can leave it in your car, and if you want to go out and call family, you can, but are we saying no communication with the outside world, for they can't leave the building?
How about we just allow staff to kind of look into this issue, and maybe we can make a recommendation when we go to adopt this at our next meeting. Like
Okay.
we'll put it down as a topic for
okay.
further investigation, because again, there might be other ramifications to not allowing that, just on a whim. So
Okay.
I think we might have trouble getting people to volunteer for it, personally. I mean,
Well, I don't, the dependence on a cell phone, on a device for the means of social media and reading news is something that I think for a period of, 10 to 12 hours, an adult can refrain from doing if it is part of the rules. But that's, I'm one person at the table, so.
I agree with you, but instead of putting it in ordinance,
Correct.
maybe put it in the rules.
That's
That way,
kind of where I was going with it, and maybe it is more specific to no commenting on social media, those types of things, rather than just no cell phones and
Sure.
something like that.
Sure.
But
Okay.
again, we'll look at it and make sure that we come up with something that can
So-
satisfy the concern.
So let's say that someone did it anyway. Like, what happens?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what was posted. Yeah, and again, it's
Oh, let's be really specific and say Jeremiah Schofield lost the election by 100 votes, and they put it out there before where it looks like he's going to lose by 100 votes, and it goes out an hour and a half before the election closes.
Yeah.
I mean, that could give a distinct advantage to someone
yeah.
that was in there. So what happens to the election judge? Oh, you can't be election judge anymore.
Or does it invalidate, was it due to the election as
Does
well?
it do something? I don't, like, what's the ramification? Like, maybe I don't understand
Yeah, you'd
the
get
negative
into
impacts.
well, you'd get into basically civil procedure at that point, and it would potentially be a challengeable election that somebody did something that altered what would have been the normal outcome of an election.
Okay.
And
Because
likely
we didn't have a big enough sign.
Which is why I prefer that.
I didn't.
right,
Tuesday
no, I
morning,
agree
son.
with you, but it would be more difficult to change that in the future
Mhm.
if it's in an ordinance
Mhm.
versus if it's in the guidelines when somebody volunteers
Mhm.
to be an election judge.
Agreed.
What's the guidelines now for the election judge? What was the last election judge? Was there any guidelines
You're
about?
asking me a question that I don't have that kind of
Yeah.
information at my fingertips right now, but I mean we can look to what instructions specifically we gave to the election judges at the last election, but whether or not there's even a written list of rules for them, I'm not even sure one exists. It's probably more of just here's the work that you need to be doing throughout the day.
I mean, I know that it's written within the poll watchers section of the ordinance, the rules for those individuals, not speaking at all to any of the judges at any time throughout the day, in any way influencing any of the voters. So I mean, like, there are like guidelines and regulations, if you want to call them that, written within the ordinance for certain roles. So that's why I brought it up within the context of tonight's conversation for this ordinance.
I mean, I appreciate you. I think you're trying to bring integrity to the
I am,
election,
and I'm trying to
and I do
reduce.
appreciate that.
I'm trying to lower any liability or risk of a civil, proceeding
Yeah.
becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we have trouble getting election judges last election? I mean,
Typically, we get the minimum amount, and that's pretty much it.
it's usually the same people, isn't it?
Admittedly, I've only been through one, but I think
Was
there's
there anyone
usually
last year?
Was there?
For sure. Mm-hmm.
there were at least 2 new ones last year.
Okay.
So again, whether or not those same 3 will do it again next year when we have our next election, I don't know.
It's a
Three
good
plus
point.
an alternate, correct?
If we can find an alternate.
It's a good point, Councilman Grassley, because I know it's been challenging across. You hear that on the news leading up to the midterms here, but I know a couple of the residents here in town are working with Carroll County Board of Elections to recruit, and I spoke with him yesterday, and they're having wonderful outcome from the grassroots reach, and that's worked. So perhaps the same could hold true for our local elections.
And just as a reminder, when we did modify the charter, we did add the provision that, if we couldn't find election judges that were residents of Sykesville, we could actually go outside the jurisdiction to pull from there.
Would it make sense to compare what the county has in their ordinances versus their
With respect to
procedures?
the Board of Supervisors,
In terms of
Or even
that.
other municipalities in the county or something.
appreciate that recommendation. That sounds good. Okay, thank you. Does our charter already include a statement about ADA accommodations? I know that was something that Councilman Schofield brought up, for the sight and hearing impaired, like what's offered to them or what's available to
I don't
them.
believe the charter says anything
Okay.
specifically about that.
So it'd be a place to put it here in the ordinance.
And again, those would be state guidelines as well.
Okay, so it's easy to just pull in.
Correct.
Thank you. And my last section of comments has to do with mail-in voting. And again, we had spoken about the designated agent and the restriction or the limitation for each designated agent to only be able to assist 10 registered voters. And I think we formed quite a consensus that evening. Councilman Dyer isn't here this evening, but I know that he too had concerns about limiting that number. I'm not speaking for him this evening, I'm just noting what was said at the other meeting. I'll say again what I said in August. I really don't find anything negative about not limiting the number of voters that a single individual as a designated agent could be assisting with respect to requesting the mail-in ballot on their behalf, or carrying the request form, I should say, for the mail-in ballot to our municipal government location, and or delivering the mail-in ballot by hand to the registered voter. I know that state law does not limit this. The mail-in ballots portion of the state law is unlimited, or at least it doesn't even note a number, let alone say unlimited. It's just, here's what's available in the form of a designated agent. And I just read the Municipal Government Works Month proclamation about civic engagement and how important it is for citizens to be involved. So that's my 2 cents. I would actually like to see H3 in section 10-4 completely stricken, removed, and there be no limitations on the number of voters that each designated agent can assist.
I concur with that. I don't see a point in having any limitations in the ordinance. I think if a person wants to go around and help people in the community get their votes in so that they can get counted, I think it's completely fine.
So I kind of I'd like it to be less. I'd like it to be 4 personally. And to use a specific example, let's say the next election I'm up and I'm running against you, let's just say.
Sure.
And come to find out, your wife is responsible for 50 votes coming in. So that would be like, I don't know if it would be. That would make me feel like, okay, well, I don't know how to exactly say it, but it's like, were you actually engaging the community, or were you getting people to vote for my husband? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And 10, I could live with 10, but 4, I think, is enough that you could, if you're a neighbor, you can get enough neighbors around. If there's a couple people in your neighborhood that cannot vote, and you want to go talk to them, that's fine. But that's just my opinion on it.
I don't think that's going to happen very often.
Every 2 years?
No, I don't think that. I don't think there's going to be people that are doing this where it's like, I don't think most people are going to do this. But every now and then, if a person wanted to go around and help people in the community, maybe they're trying to whip up support for whatever. Like, what's the problem in that? There's a civicness about that, where if you're trying to whip a vote for a particular thing because you want to see change in the community, then why can't the community do that? Maybe I struggle with why putting the restriction there.
I have to agree with Al. Now, we all know each other, but in the future, there could be a candidate that could coerce elderly or whoever isn't capable of coming in person or requesting a ballot, saying, I'm getting you this, and I'm sure that you appreciate my efforts because I will listen to you when I get voted in. I think that
it can't be the candidate.
Right.
That's right.
A candidate
cannot be.
It could be the candidate's wife, though, or I'm sorry.
A designee of the
Could be the
candidate.
wife's partner.
What about a husband?
Oh,
Would they not be doing
I'm
that
trying to be
you
gender
just said it could only be a
neutral.
wife.
Trying to be
Like,
gender.
would you have to have their-
I was thinking of my example. I was trying to be gender neutral.
I was just asking.
So
I
that's
don't have a problem having a designee helping somebody get a ballot. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with that designee returning that completed ballot to the election facility.
Their sealed ballot that's been signed on the back.
I can help you sign it. I can make sure.
Well,
that
now
you
we're just
sign-
questioning
I know,
the
I know.
integrity of
I'm-
our citizens,
No,
and the idea that we're actually having to have this conversation is actually, I don't know. I'm glad we're having it, but the idea that there's any, I feel like it opens the door. Limiting this actually opens the door for, I think, questioning the integrity of an election, and the idea that there might be a 22-year-old who is wanting to increase civic engagement in their community, and by virtue of that, they're going door to door and educating the public about the fact that A, there is an election coming, B, here are the candidates, and or don't even say here are the candidates, but hey, you can get a mail-in ballot. Here's how we educate them about getting out to vote.
I don't have a problem with that.
Right,
Yeah.
and the number of people that person could hand a mail-in ballot request form to, and they say, great, I'll take it from here, and that person says, wonderful. Or they say, can you help me? And they say, yes, I can. Fill that out, and I will take it to the townhouse for you. Like, that could happen if somebody really wanted to do this process. It should not be limited to the number of people that they can have contact with. I mean, that in and of itself is that the concept of limiting the citizens' ability to engage, to increase civic engagement in the election process is mind-boggling to me. And that's why I don't feel like it belongs in here. And questioning the integrity of those that may be using that process is an individual's concern, but it shouldn't be the concern of this elected body or the citizens of town.
So I know, but when you talk about engaging the citizens, that's like going to talk to them. This is kind of like, sign this and I'll bring your ballot to you.
Okay.
So, but if they're engaged, they could go down and vote.
But
Like
what
it's
if they can't? I mean, that's the whole
So,
point of
I
this
understand.
is for.
like what, 4 or 10 people would be fine.
But now you're injecting into this scenario. You're presuming you understand why a person would not normally be voting.
I have no idea.
That's the point. None of us do. And so, and maybe the first time that they cast a vote here in town will be via a mail-in ballot, and that will be enough for them to come out on their own every 2 years thereafter. But it is what it is. I mean,
So I have no problem erasing the number. I would agree with you that, and one of the big issues for me in running was that we don't get enough engagement. And a lot of our votes are 3, 4, 12 people, right? So for me, the more people that we can engage, regardless of whatever way we need to engage them, a vote is a vote. And this process, if you have a problem with 10 people, then you should be having a problem with the one, right? Either there's integrity in the process or there isn't integrity in the process. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking 100 or one vote. Either people are allowed to say, I would prefer to do this at home. If you can bring it to me, I'll sign it and you can take it in for me. Thank you. Then why would 5 be less integrity than 1? So I think when we start to get into numbers, I would agree with you. With you, Mayor. I just don't think we should be sitting in a place of judgment or expecting someone to take advantage or destroy a process. And if you need to evaluate it, at that time. But I don't think presuming. I think we need to assume that our citizens and those who follow a process do it with integrity and start there.
Okay, I don't have a problem with increasing or limiting the number to engagement, bringing awareness to our citizens. Hey, there's an election going on. It's part of your civic duty. If you have any questions, here's information on where you can contact the townhouse. I don't have a problem with that. I think my problem is, here's an election form, fill it out, and let me take it right now. That's where it may never happen, but
It's open to happen.
It's a request for a ballot. That's where it starts. There's 2 steps to it. They can simply provide them with an application for a mail-in ballot and walk away. They can provide them with an application for a mail-in ballot. They can fill it out, hand it to that designee, assigning them as the designee to do this for them. And that application comes back to the townhouse by way of the designee, and it can end there. The ballot would be mailed to them. That individual would receive it, fill it in, drop it off himself, or mail it back. Or it could go another step, and that would be up to that individual to designate that same agent to do the last and final part of it, which is drop my ballot for me in the drop box at the townhouse. So the application has 2 steps on it. None, 1, or 2 can be requested, and that's it. It's
So no one's walking around with ballots saying sign this and.
right.
No, they would be coming with a designation form, and then they could come here to the townhouse and get the ballots and fill it out, deposit them without bringing them back.
Who would do that?
I have no idea who would do that.
Well, then
I mean, there's a signature that goes on the back,
again, I'm
you know, in the
not really
process.
into
So,
entertaining
no,
that
but
conversation.
I'm saying if you have like 10, I mean, when I see a designated agent, I'm thinking neighbors. If you have an unlimited number, well, then the whole town, you could be a designated agent for the whole town, really.
Yes, you could if there's an unlimited number there. That's right, Al. You could have some person go door to door to 1,600 homes and find 4,000 or 2,200 people of voting age and get
I
all
just
of
think
their
it's a-
ballots for them. You could do
I
that.
think it's a slippery slope to pick a number and say integrity starts at this number and stops at this number. That's, you know, so either I think we do it, which we have a process to, and I think if you need a review process of those later, you know, if there's a question, then I think you can put that in, but I think we've got to be really careful about assuming intent and
So, Joe,
identifying.
did you pick this up off from another town's ordinance, or was it? I'm just asking.
No. And I think we said this back in August too. It is a relatively arbitrary number. You can pick whatever it is and justify whatever it is. I think with the way I did it was if it's a household of 5 or 6 registered voters and you want to help a neighbor too, it gave you a little buffer there. So it's that's the only way we came up with the number.
I know we kind of looked at Tawnytown, but did Tawnytown have anything like that with a designated agent?
I don't think they have any limitation on. I don't think they have any number.
Okay. Did we look at anybody else's ordinance?
That was limited.
I mean, to do with the designated agent. I was just.
I don't think there was anything specific in any of the ordinances that we looked at as models for this that
Yeah.
had anything specific on the designated agent form.
Okay.
So we're going to ask for a motion to introduce this ordinance as amended, and we need to know what as amended means. So, you know where I stand, Jeremiah.
Are we just talking about the designated agent amendment?
Well, I think to this point we've all kind of been in agreement.
All the other
Mhm.
tweaks that we've been talking about
Yeah.
too.
So I'll offer up a motion, which may need to be amended as soon as I say it. But I offer up a motion to open, introduce ordinance number 2022-05, an ordinance of the Council of Town Sykesville, deleting Chapter 35 voting of the Code of the Town of Sykesville, and to enact a new Chapter 10 elections, establishing standards by which town elections are administered. According to this ordinance, and having staff go through and review some administrative errors that were noted earlier in the discussion, to include gender-neutral language, and to remove 10-4 subsection H number 3. And I think that was everything that I wanted to get into the motion.
Going through the list, I think when you said administrative stuff, that covers everything.
There's a couple of things in reference to a couple of words that were misspelled.
Yes.
There's a couple of things and what I meant by administrative, just so that everyone's clear, is the flopping of Board of Supervisors versus Board of Election Supervisors.
All clarifications as discussed.
That's right.
So I would second that motion.
Okay, so that's the motion on the table. I'm sorry, but there's one more thing I have to mention I forgot to say.
That wasn't your last thing?
No, I skipped number 8, that was number 9. This is just for discussion. I know that there was some talk about the perception of like early voting happening, even though we don't publicize early voting. When somebody would come in with their mail-in ballot, come in to request their mail-in ballot, receive the mail-in ballot, vote their ballot, and then drop it in the box. And so, we're then essentially, if they're doing it in the building, offering a polling place ahead of the election day. Is that something I'm completely construing, and that there should be verbiage in here saying?
That is the mail-in ballot process.
Okay, and so it's okay that it's being voted in here early and dropped in the box here inside the building, not the drop box and doing it in their car or anything.
Right.
Okay. And they're being offered an opportunity to do that in a private location.
Right. This room is usually set up as.
Okay.
Again, I don't want to say it's set up exactly like the polling place would be on election day, but it is adequate to serve that purpose.
Okay. And my only concern with that happening is there aren't to be any candidates on the premises when people are voting, but it is the townhouse, and so the idea that a candidate could be I'm just throwing it out there. And so if there's any added verbiage needed there.
Those types of scenarios are I don't want to say well known, but even as elected officials, if you're a sitting elected official, there's an expectation that you may actually be in the townhouse while somebody's voting.
Very good.
For or against you. So that's part of the job duties that have to happen.
Okay. Then I don't have anything else to add to his to Councilman Schofield's motion. So there's a motion on the table that's been seconded. Is there concern for or need for further discussion before I call for a vote?
This is just to introduce it.
Correct. As amended per the instructions this evening. Yeah. And then it would be amended in that fashion, and then we would actually have yet another opportunity with a public hearing and further discussion at the council level when all 7 of us are here. Okay. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion on the table, which was very wordy. Hopefully I don't have to repeat it.
Read it back. Read it back. Really
I could read it back.
I was going to say, where's Carrie? Have her read
You want me to try again?
No.
All in favor of the motion on the table? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. So with a vote of 4-1, the motion to introduce ordinance 2022-05 elections as amended has passed. That brings us to our announcements and reports. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 14. We have volunteer opportunities available at the Historic District Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, and Police Auxiliary. Those interested, please email town@sykesville.net for more information about those or any volunteering opportunities with the town. And I will say that I'm pleased to report we've had some interest since a few of our vacancies have been listed and described in our most recent fall edition of the newsletter. So look what happens when we let people know about things in writing. So our next item is staff updates, and I'll turn to Joe Cosentini, our town manager.
Just a couple quick ones. In the FY23 budget, we had for really each of our historic structures some money set aside to do some repair work. One of the more visible ones is going to be down at the post office. We're actually going to start the stucco work probably this week, and then painting thereafter. So if you see scaffolding going up, I just want to make the public aware that's what's going on down there. And then the other one is really just a bit of a thank you. I think I did this at the last meeting too, but the Public Works Department has been called out several times, either before hours or after hours, to help with some vandalism that we've been dealing with at Cooper Park. So I know he's in the audience, so I just want to say a special thank you to Derek for constantly going back to Cooper Park and refixing the bathrooms after, let's just say it's rambunctious kids in all likelihood. There are efforts going on now to obviously prevent that from happening anymore, but again, we appreciate those efforts.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Joe. That brings us to our public safety report from Chief Michael Spaulding, extraordinaire. Thank you, sir.
The extraordinary part.
Go with it, Chief. Go with
I
it.
should.
I thought we were gonna lead with
Never
that.
been good at taking compliments.
Go with it.
All right, public safety report covering October 3 to 16, as you can see on the screen. 312 total events. Just a few highlights. You'll see 15 community policing initiatives. And I did want to mention, if you hadn't had a chance to look at those 15, I think about 7 or 8 of them were done by Officer Young, who has took it upon herself. Actually, I prodded her to do this a little bit. But she did take the initiative to go out and actually issue, I think, 7 of these vehicle security report cards. In light of the thefts from vehicles that we had throughout the neighborhood, she went out and found at least 7 other vehicles that were unlocked, even after the rash of thefts that we had. So I think this is an excellent community policing initiative, a way to remind people that, hey, we found your door unlocked or valuables inside. Leave this friendly reminder on their car, and hopefully that will help to people secure the vehicles. Other than that, 26-foot patrols. We are still doing foot patrols on Main Street. 132 patrol checks, 22 traffic enforcement initiatives. Again, a total of 312 events. And you will see there was 10 incident reports. I think Joe mentioned several of the destructions of property that occurred at Cooper Park. We are working on that. I do want to also add my thanks to Derek for working with our officers and responding out there. I also wanted to mention that one of his employees was actually involved in the initial report of thefts. Let me clarify that. Involved in terms of having observed this suspicious person. We believe the person was committing the thefts, and brought it to Derek's attention. Derek was actually the one that called the police that night, or early morning. So I do want to thank you guys for keeping your eyes open out there, especially during the early morning hours, and letting us know when you think there's something we need to address. Team effort. Any questions about any of the incident reports that are in the packet?
I just have a quick question, Chief.
Ma'am.
The 70500, they'll all say that. Where am I looking? Where's the number? Come on.
00189.
Thank you. 194.
Mm-hmm.
Is 350 West Friendship, South Branch Park?
It is.
So, in order to identify someone with less than 10 grams of marijuana, is that happening because it's by happenstance, or are they acting in a way that, like, are they at the skate park? Are they in their car?
They were. You remember that case?
I do.
Yeah. I know we were called. They found it was he claimed that
Somebody complained about marijuana in an unapproved container, which is violation of the law. Our officers were tied up on another event, I believe outside of town, to help either the state police or the sheriff's office. They responded back sometime after the original dispatch, located a subject that fit the description after just being in the area, spoke with him in a consensual kind of encounter, and
he did have a Maryland medical cannabis card, but it wasn't properly packaged, and therein is the violation.
Understood.
So we took it, not to cut you off, Lieutenant, but we did seize it.
Okay.
And I believe they checked with the Howard County State's Attorney, and they declined to prosecute. So,
Okay.
I mean, we did our job.
Okay, I appreciate the
It's called
explanation.
right.
It was, that makes much more sense. Great. Thank you.
And I should also note that in several of the cases that was mentioned earlier, the MDOPs, the destruction of property at Cooper Park, in almost every case, it was found by, except I think you found one, but in three of the other cases that are listed on here, it was found by the officers doing a patrol check or foot patrol. So they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but obviously we can't be everywhere at all times. So again, there was, I think, two subsequent cases to what is listed here.
Okay.
That'll be on the next report, but we are trying to address that. We have some investigative techniques that we're going to,
Deploy.
yes, that's the word I was looking
Yes, sir.
So.
Okay.
So not a question in reference to this, just wondering how the community policing is going down on Main Street and making sure that there's a visual presence, if you will, of the officers. Just anything to report out there?
I think it's still going well, as you saw from the number of foot patrols. Many of those were on Main Street. We're still trying to have a visible presence there, with keeping in mind that there's other parts of the town that we have to have a presence there as well, in the skate park, Cooper Park, and the neighborhoods, and Warfield, and so forth and so on. So I think it's a fine balance there between not focusing all in one area, but focusing in all areas equally, and I think we're doing a good job. We'll continue to monitor that, and of course, as the weather gets colder, it's not always an ideal situation to be out on foot, but our officers are tough. As long as it's not sleeting or
Very good.
snowing, we'll be okay.
Good. Anyone else for Chief?
Chief, on a side note, how is recruiting going?
It's a good question. As you know, as you may know, it's a nationwide epidemic right now in terms of recruiting officers. We do have several viable candidates that we're looking at, so that's the good news. But are the applications pouring in? No. You have to really look far and wide and put a lot of effort into the recruitment process, which I think we've done. But in the end, and again, it's not just us, it's the larger departments that are having the same issues. It's hard to find good qualified people that want to do this job nowadays. So it's a continual struggle.
Do we work with the VA transitional services by chance?
I don't think that we have, in terms of finding people that are coming out of the military that are looking for jobs.
Maybe former military police or what have you.
The problem we run into there is we don't have the viable opportunity to put somebody through a police academy. We need an officer now, so generally
Got it.
we're looking at somebody already trained.
Got it.
But they are certainly, for any military people out there that are looking for a second job, we're always very anxious to take military personnel because they've had the training and the military discipline, and usually make very good officers.
But to confirm, even that individual that you just described would still need to go through
Would have
the
to go
academy,
through an entrance level academy, yeah.
even if they were an MP,
Right.
right?
On their own, basically.
Unless we ever are in a position again, and Joe, never say never, to put...
That gets a spot filled.
It's, as you know, a very long process between recruiting and the hiring and the background and then the 6-month academy. So you're looking at 9 months to a year, and then field training on the back end, closer to a year before that officer is actually on the road and doing his or her job. So it's a long investment on the front end, which is paid off for us with several of our recent officers. But right now, I think the more important need, the priority is to fill the remaining 2 vacancies that we have with certified officers. That's kind of the direction we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Anything else?
I think we're set.
Did you let Officer Young know that my dog unlocked the car?
Fantastic.
I will.
Please let her know that.
Right after the dog ate that thing that piece of paper that Officer Young put on your windshield.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start. That brings us to council committee reports. Anything?
So the next meeting is on November 7th for the Planning Commission, and just an early heads up that I will be missing the December 12th meeting. I'm going to be out of country. Thanks.
Historic District, we have a meeting tomorrow night, and we have 3 applications here at the Townhouse, 7 o'clock, if anybody's interested in attending. And as the mayor said, we have some openings, so if you're interested, please apply.
Please. I'll skip myself. I'll go last. Is anything for us?
First, I wanted to thank the Downtown Sykesville Connection for a great event this weekend. I saw lots of families and crafts and activities, and the park was hopping and Main Street was hopping, and so I thought,
Did you see the mayor square dancing?
I saw the video of the mayor square dancing. I did see other people square dancing. I wasn't there when you were doing
really
it.
Fun.
I did see the beginning of the clown school or whatever
That was fun too.
class that they were doing at the circus group.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great feel on Main Street. It was nice to see families and all of that other stuff. So I know
Awesome weather for it.
it was beautiful weather. Yeah,
Beautiful.
and I know for me that was a big issue, that we made sure that we were doing events on Main Street that weren't just for adults. So
Great.
very appreciative of that.
For sure.
And Spark meets this Thursday, getting ready for the winter events, and they, I think, knocked it out of the park in terms of the summer events. So, and then the other update I have is continued to get questions about mental health first aid. So I did just forward an email to the council members and to you, Joe, with the classes so the health department's the one that we've been trying to get out to provide the classes.
Yep.
They currently provide classes at Carroll Community College.
Okay.
So I sent out the link and Joe has that for anyone who would like to, who can go up. I believe they're doing it in 2 4-hour classes.
Okay.
I've asked for a cost because they don't have the funding to bring someone down here right now. They have limited provider or limited trainers.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could look at our budget as soon as we get a cost for like a full day training and whether we'd want to open it up. And I just need to know when we would want to do that. Like, would we want to do it on a Saturday or 2 4-hour classes? Would the business owners be interested in all of that kind of stuff? But as soon as I get costs, I will get that to Joe as well to try and help coordinate. So it's just a question of kind of numbers of what people would be interested in.
Okay.
For the winter events, is there a date yet for Santa coming to town?
It's always the Saturday.
First Saturday.
After of December. Yeah.
You are actually a required participant.
Did you know that?
No.
Not all council members.
Security in the line went very well last year, so you kind of staked your claim to that spot. So.
Yeah, and
No, it's
You
good
know what
enough.
they say about doing a good job once.
Yeah, no, more. More is coming.
More please. Yes,
yeah.
That would be December the 3rd.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
that's early this year.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, for council members, definitely appreciated the support last year, and think if we can do that again, that would be important and very helpful. So.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I'm going to be in town, so thank you.
Well, I'll jump in there since you mentioned the Fall Fest. I'm speaking on behalf of Councilman Keenan, who's absent this evening, and asked me to provide his Downtown Sykesville Connection Board of Directors Liaison Report formally. The Fall Fun Fest. The Fall Fun Fest this past Saturday was a great success, and I can speak to that. The weather was perfect, and Al can speak to that, and it was very well attended, and Lisa can speak to that. The variety of scheduled entertainment appealed to all attendees and brought a large crowds to the middle of Main Street on the hour all afternoon, and also Millard Cooper Park was packed as well. And Councilman Keenan would like to thank the Friendship Baptist Church, all of the DSC staff and volunteers, the Department of Public Works, the Sykesville Police Department, and I'm pretty sure I saw some auxiliary members there as well, for making it safe and successful. And I would like to thank the square dancers who gave me a refresher. I had learned to square dance as a 6th grader in gym class, and I'm telling you, it all came right back. I'd also like to announce that Trick or Treat on Main is this Saturday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. So come one, come all in your costumes. Don't be a baby. Dress up, come down, and have fun. I also want to take a moment to announce something that I had included in the town newsletter. I recently the Fall Town newsletter, that I have made arrangements with the Hatton Animal Rescue. They are located in Glen Elg, and I went there this past weekend with my nieces and had 2 hours of a lot of fun with a lot of disabled and old animals. And so the Hatton Animal Rescue provides a forever home and to seriously, like almost anything with 4 or even 3 legs, because there was a dog there with 3 legs. But they're all disabled and elderly. And so I worked out with them an opportunity for all of us who use pumpkins as decor in the fall, whether indoors or outdoors. If you have 1 pumpkin or 10 pumpkins, or if, like my home decor supervisor, you are prone to have 20 pumpkins, bring those as well. You can bring them November 5th to the Little Sykes Railroad on Sandusky. There will be a large pickup truck to take as many pumpkins that are brought. They will not go in the landfill. Instead, they will go in the bellies of the goats, the donkeys, the chickens, the sheep, and I'm missing another animal that loves them. Say again? They don't have any pigs, but pigs would eat them too. I don't think the horses eat them. In any sense, they're going to be in love with any pumpkin you bring them. So let's do that. And there to meet you will be a miniature donkey named Paco Bell, who is absolutely precious, as well as a very vibrant rooster that looks like Tina Turner. So there you have it. Come out on November 5th with your pumpkins. Anything else from anyone? From 12 to 4.
Are you going to announce the town of Sykesville?
12 to 5, sorry.
Great time last night at the Iron Maiden concert.
October 31st, are we gonna?
Oh, yeah, that is going to happen before our next meeting. Trick-or-treating, thank you very much, President Carter. Trick-or-treating is the day of October 31st. It will be safely completed with our police out and about, and keep an eye on kiddos, but it's from sunset
6 to 8.
6, so basically 6 to 8. If the light is on, knock.
If it's off,
Keep walking. But yeah, my light will be on, so come get your candy, kiddos. And that's 6 to 8 on the 31st. Anything else? Good call on that.
I want to celebrate the fact that our own mayor is a woman to watch in the local community.
Thank you.
And we have a celebrity in the midst.
Oh, wow.
I just want to publicly say congratulations for that, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I saw some pictures of the celebration, and Joe, I saw you were there, and Lisa, were you there?
no,
You
I
were
was
not
just
there.
forwarding pictures.
Okay. I did see some really cool pictures, and just congratulations.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. That
It's quite
our
a
town is recognized, that you're a representative of our town, and that's fantastic.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Very well deserved.
Thank you. I hope that all of you get the opportunity to feel like you're in a room with strong women doing great things and excelling in their fields, and in despite of all the adversity that might have been ahead of them. And so that's what made me feel good that evening. So thank you for the shout out. I appreciate it. So that brings us to adjournment. If we have a motion.
To adjourn.
And that's the first. Second by President Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, I'm sure. That's unanimous. We are adjourned. It is 8:10.